Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jenny White.
How are you today?
Well, I'm good. We got a little rain. You got to be happy. You're getting some more rain out there at the farm.
No.
I know you're happy.
No. So this year, I couldn't get rid of smoke. And this year I couldn't get rid of rain. So it's like a double thing. So, man, we've already got people on this morning. Earl's daughter says, good morning. I pray your coffee is strong and your backbone is even stronger. And Oklahoma's for Health and Parental Rights are on. So thank you for making Oklahoma healthy again. And Roberta is just surprised because she managed to get on twice at the same time.
Yeah.
2 days in a row, Roberta. You're awesome, man. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That is awesome. So, did you go to the Maha, and Julia's on already this morning? Did you go to the Maha event yesterday?
No, I was not able to. I wish I would have.
I didn't do that, but you know what I did do?
That's right.
I hung out with some of our favorite friends.
The new documentary, and thank you, Whitney, for that invitation. I apologize that I was not able to go. I really, really wanted to go because I know that documentary is probably mind-blowing, which Jenny's going to tell us a little bit.
Well, Whitney and Kelly invited us to come. And so this is on the left is Kelly Wilson, and in the middle is Amy Serrato, and then our friend Whitney Malika on the other side on the right. And they are with Pykoff OTA, and they have been putting together a documentary about Norman's fight against the OTA, taking out more homes per square mile for this upcoming ribbon of concrete than any other turnpike they've attempted in ever.
Can I rebrand the OTA to the corrupt OTA? Can I rebrand that, Jenny?
Oh, I think we should. Yeah, maybe we should just call them COTA, corrupt OTA.
That's right.
Because I have to tell you that I thought 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm going to go because I love these ladies and they're phenomenal, and I'm so behind what they're doing, and I know both of us are. And so I was like, I'm going to go and represent because, hey, but 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm telling you, Michael, I sat there that whole 2 hours, 20 minutes going, what?
Yeah.
It is. They did such a phenomenal job of showing how just corrupt the OTA is. And you're not supposed to say that kind of stuff, because you could get sued or whatever. The problem that we would have is that the Oklahoma Supreme Court has actually even ruled in favor. It was a 7-3 ruling in favor of the OTA doing what they're doing, which is literally they went against state law to make that ruling. So it's kind of like our judicial system is so unjust anymore. Who knows what could happen? Because we have these little things called laws, and then yet the people who make the laws don't follow the laws, and the people who are supposed to follow the laws don't follow the laws. And it's just kind of a big toss up as to what actually is justice or not justice, because it's whatever we intend for it to be in a day. It's so bad.
Now, what was that? That documentary is
bad.
2 hours, 20 minutes. Was it just over that Norman project, or was it kind of the entire history and all of the corruption along the way?
So that's a great question, because here's the answer to that. It's just about the Norman project.
Oh, wow.
So it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes on just the Norman project. And you would kind of think, yeah, no, you're riveted the whole time because you're listening to these people who are getting their homes taken away, but you're not just listening to that. Amy Serrato has her PhD in engineering, and she's a professor at OU in civil engineering. These people aren't just, well, I came out of my shed and was really hacked off, because not that those people don't count, but I'm just saying these people are not uninformed people. These people, like Amy, has a background in civil engineering, and there's so many clips of her in this movie going, people, I'm telling you, I'm a civil engineer. This isn't even, you can't even do, this isn't right. You're not even doing it right. So
we had Amy on the show, 6 months ago or so?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's when it comes out right now, they've been asked to present it at several different film festivals for documentary awards. So that's a good thing, but we won't be able to see it until they finish the documentary circuit. And then once it's off the documentary circuit, we'll get to the general public will get to see it. But I'm really thinking we need to have a screening of it at the Liberty, Oklahoma conference, which is going to be November 13th through the 15th at Okana, and tickets will be available soon. So make sure you put that date aside, November 13th through the 15th at Okana, the water park in downtown Oklahoma City. We will be having a Liberty, Oklahoma conference you'll want to attend. I do think we need to have a screening of this movie there, because if the conference is about liberty, people don't understand the concept of liberty anymore, but if they watch this movie, they'll get it without a hitch. They'll get it. You have no liberty, number one, if government says, here, we'll let you put all of the money you have into this property, but if you don't pay me for it every year, then I'm going to take it away from you. That's not liberty. It's not liberty for the government to say, here, you can buy this property, but if we decide we want to put in a useless piece of ribbon of concrete so that we can make enough money on bonds to pay off the last project that we did, then no, you don't have any liberty. So, I mean, I don't think people are understanding how bad things are in Little Red, Oklahoma.
Well, no, the Thunder won the NBA Finals, so that's all that matters, Jenny.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You are completely right, but I love Earl's daughter because she does believe me. Julia says government doesn't exist until it steals from their neighbors. Its only goal is to grow itself, not bring justice, and that's 100% right.
Yeah.
So let's do this. What?
Well, I would just say, on top of Julie's comment there, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for you, Jenny, but in my opinion, the government only operates through the manipulation of us, of the people. I mean, 100%. It's 100% manipulation all the time. I mean, that's just how I see it.
You can speak for me. I'm completely on board with you there. Oh, and John Boy has an excellent point. Just put a new roof on your house. Insurance and appraiser will come pay you a visit so they can raise your property values. Yeah. And that's true, because then that brings the rates up. So it's, and see, Earl's daughter agrees with you too. But she said she agreed with me first. So that's the important part.
That's right.
All right. Well, we need to bring on our newest Oklahoma senator, Senator Bryan Logan, so that he can talk about being Oklahoma's newest senator. And he's on with us this morning. So good morning, Senator Logan. How are you today?
I'm great. I was listening, and I would like to say, so there's an old saying at the state, when you're an employee of the state, that you become institutionalized. And what I have discovered is when you become a lawmaker, it's a rapid release institute. You know, you become institutionalized real quick, real fast, for whatever reason. So I don't know if it's something in the air in the building. Maybe they're putting it in the water, so you become institutionalized real quick at that level.
Well, you're not going to.
That's
You're
why
a
we have to.
maniac, correct, Bryan?
That's why we have to stay in conversation. I mean, I had all kinds of funny things to say as y'all was talking. I was like, you know, I just woke up one day, come out of my shed, and decided I wanted to run for the state senate.
Oh, and Whitney says, thank you for your support, Jenny and Michael. We can't wait for the conference in November because OTA is going to help sponsor the conference. So we're very excited to do that with them. So I want to just dive right in, Bryan, because you and I talked about this yesterday, and I don't think people realize this. Okay, so I'm going to give you the timeline of what you've been through. Okay, audience, are you ready? All right. So Senator Roger Thompson resigned effective 11/1 of 2024. Okay, so he had announced it earlier, but it was effective 11/1 of 2024. So then the governor has to do a special election because Roger Thompson had not finished his, he still had a year something left on his term. So we had to have somebody, we had to elect somebody to fill that seat. So the governor has to come in and put a special election on the books. So he resigned effective 11/1, and our governor announced the election, the special election, for March 4th. So do people realize that we begin the legislative session in February?
That is absolutely the question that I've had the whole time. So as early as July, he knew that he was going to resign. Some reason they pushed it to November. And so even me getting started in campaign and some of the guys following me, there was a couple of guys on the Republican ticket that came out as early as July and started campaigning. And so the whole time I was questioning that, why are we having a March 4th, April 13th, and a April 1st and May 13th election to put us right at the end of session? And so I have not asked the governor that. But when you look at the House seats that came up several months after this one, and their election was like just a week or two later. And so it can be done a whole lot faster. And it put my district without a senator, number one, and it put whoever came in and filled that term in a really awkward spot as far as the votes go. And I know we'll probably discuss that 5 days. So it really put us in a bad spot. It put us in a bad spot for the district, put us in a bad spot for the colleagues, for the state of Oklahoma. I learned a lot. So, and I even made this joke one day in caucus meeting, something about, we get the agenda 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And that's kind of why a lot of the guys stay there, because you may be reading bills at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. So if you really want to do a great job and study the agenda, you may be doing that at 4 or 5 the next morning, preparing for the day of voting to really understand what's coming and if there's been any changes in those bills last minute. So
let's parse that out. So he resigned effective 11/1. There was a March 4th election put on. So you had to go ahead and start running for election. So March 4th was the first one. You won that one, but you had to go to a runoff because so then you had to continue your campaigning through the April 1st election.
Correct.
And then you had to have the general election on May 13th.
That's correct.
And then after that, you were sworn in on the 21st, and they sine died on the 30th.
Correct.
Wow. Well, do you know, Jenny and Brian, has there ever been any precedent of something coming in like this before with anyone else?
Not to my knowledge. I know some people's come in mid or even in the beginning, after deadline maybe, but not 1 week to go, not 5 days to go. So, and that was, you take things and you say, hey, we got that out of the way going into next session. So you had 5 days. It really was a fast crash course of learning the maneuvers. And I'm not going to say policies, procedures, things like that. I'm going to say you learned real quick the show, if I can say it that way. You learn the theatrics. You learn, oh, this ain't going anywhere. We're doing this just to be talking. We're doing this just to be giving somebody a show somewhere.
Well, and when we were talking the other day, so think about it. You have a year and what, like a couple of days or something so you did all of this campaigning to get elected to serve 5 days, to then have to turn around and campaign again after next session.
That's correct. This fall, I'll be knocking doors this fall. Come September, October, November, I'll have to knock doors before I ever go into February, because I'll be in the same boat that I was before I was an incumbent. I couldn't look at bills, do research. And this is what I told some of my colleagues. I told them, said, guys, it's not fair to you that while you guys was having caucus meetings, having sit down meetings at lunch and restaurants, and the similarities between ministers really and lawmakers is pretty similar. And you all know my background as being a pastor.
There are pastors out there that are going to throw tomatoes at you for
Well, and what I mean by that is, no, let me use coaches. There. So coaches are the same way. Pastors are the same way. You pick up the phone, you call your pastor friend, and you tell him, what's going on. And so I guess we like to talk. And lawmakers are no different, I think, but I never got to be a part of that because I come in 5 days. And so I said all that to say this. They got to have all the roundtable conversations about good bills and bad bills. They got to have the hallway conversations, the car ride home on Thursday, coming in on Sunday night, breakfast conversations. I didn't get any of that because I was knocking doors. And so this fall, while everybody's trying to figure out what bills they're running and finishing up their interim studies, guess who's going to be knocking doors again less than a year later? So yeah. I started in December last year. And so 10 months, and I'll be knocking doors again. So I'm hoping and praying that they give me 4 years, give me a 4-year term. And if I do a bad job, then run somebody. So if anybody's out there listening, say a prayer for Bryan Logan, and just, that's all I can say, is say a prayer and hope we don't draw an opponent.
Well, Jules has got a really good point to make here. So maybe there's something to that. Coming in late, you didn't get to hear all the misleading lies from the lobbyists. So, what can you say? So tell us a little bit about your first experience then.
So I kind of talked to you on the phone about this a little bit, and I've kind of talked a little bit about different meetings, GOP meetings that I've went to. I've got 2 of those today, by the way. It was at one last night. So you hear this over and over, just vote your conscience, vote your conscience. You can't go wrong with voting your conscience. Well, there is several people on either side of that bill, whether that's constituents, lobbyists, colleagues, family, friends, prior coworkers. Somebody's going to be mad at you for voting your conscience. So the biggest thing that I said, and it's kind of humorous, but not, because it's serious. There's so much pressure in pushing one of those buttons, and that's kind of what I've alluded to and kind of talked about a little bit. It's like, man, it's real easy when you get to talking about the pressure that it takes to push that button. We get to talking about trigger pull and guns, and you want a really light trigger. And so when you talk about pushing that button, oh, it's easy to push the button. They just don't tell you the amount of pressure that you get as you're watching this board and you're trying to figure out. And so when I'm looking at the board, there is even in like-minded members that I'm trying to figure out why they're voting different ways, if that makes sense, because I didn't have the time to do the research. And so maybe they had a constituent call them and say, hey, please vote no on this. So I didn't get that. So, I told you that I was looking at the summary of the bill, looking at who voted on it in committee. And so that was even another interesting thing to me. Some of the people that voted on it in committee voted yes in committee, or vice versa, would turn around and vote the opposite way once it made it to the floor. And so you kind of a little bit confused, like, because you would love to jump up and run and ask all these people, what changed? Why do you no longer like this bill? And you simply don't have that time. And so,
well, I think it was John Boy and it wasn't Julia. I think that's your answer is.
Yeah.
That's your answer.
I did not get, maybe they just wrote me off, but I did not get any pressure hardly. One of the overrides, actually, a lobbyist came in on the governor's side and wanted to sustain a veto. And, but other than that, I really didn't get any visits. Maybe they wrote me off as a lost cause. So I'm not really sure. So, and that's kind of the other thing that I spoke about last night. I need to hear from my district. And again, I'll use the minister thing. So pastored 16 years and poor Sister Sally, will make up a name because I got some people that fit this bill, and luckily they're not listening. Sister Sally missed 3 days in a row, and on the fifth day, well, you didn't even come see me. You didn't know I was sick, or I didn't. Well, right. No, I'm not a mind. I don't have ESP unless the Lord tells you that you're sick. And that's the same way with some of these votes. We really need the constituents to step up and reach out and say, this is why this is a good bill, or this is why this is a bad bill. So that's all I ask. I'm going to do my dead level best to be transparent, and vote my district, vote my conscience, the Bible and the Constitution. But for any reason, now I can't go against the Bible or the Constitution, but if there is a bill out there that either destroys the district or benefits the district, I need to know about it. Because as I said, at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, when you get the agenda, you're trying to make the best educated and conscious decision there that you can. So,
well, and I wanted to put this comment in about that Catherine put on. What can we do to change this flawed system? Because I've heard that before, that the senators just don't even have time to read everything fully before they vote.
You're asking a guy that's been there 5 days, and I made the joke about it. Give me a little bit of time to dive into that one. And like I said, even if we could get it the afternoon, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. But if you could get it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it would be, at least you would have a few more hours in the day to see what's coming down the pike. Because obviously you don't want to reach out to colleagues at 1 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, what do you not like about this bill?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to
1 in the morning. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael. What?
I just said maybe we just need to reach out to them 1 in the morning if they're going to put that many bills through. But I want to ask real quick, Jenny, did who actually set the timetable for your special election, Brian? Did we already talk about that or mention that?
I assume it was the governor.
Yeah, the governor's the one that decrees when the elections are going to be, if they're special elections. There's a time the state election board sets up the regular general election schedule, but if there's a special election, a statewide special election, then the governor determines that.
Wow.
Yeah, he's the one that put out the memo, and I still got a copy of the memo in my phone, but the memo was signed by the governor. So, like I said, inevitably it was his decision.
So,
and let's just be honest. Let me be transparent with you guys. So, I think there was probably concerns on a lot of different things. Let's just be real. The pro tem race, the overall majority, and so that was what was said to me or asked even by reporters after I won the runoff. There was the Daily Oklahoman, non-doc, several people reached out to me, and that was the main thing they wanted to focus on. It wasn't policy. It wasn't, how did you get here? It was, where are you at on the pro tem race? So that was the general question that everybody wanted to know. Like I said, it wasn't really policy. And then, so now the governor would have not known that I was going to join the race when he put out this memo. So, yeah, that's real interesting. And I've said it a few times that if I get a chance, I'm going to ask him why he waited.
Roberta said, according to Paxton, us grassroots are up at 2:00 in the morning working, so I see no reason we shouldn't be up there.
I actually agree with the pro tem on that. My signal chat will be dinging at 3, 4 in the morning. I'm thinking, what kind of drugs are you people on? Like, do y'all ever sleep? When do y'all sleep? So, and then sometimes as early as 7 o'clock, you might get the last one at 3:30, and 7 they're raring to go. And I just wish I knew.
I think the case that Roberta is referring to was not a very nice case. He was saying that, we sit up banging our keyboards, writing nasty letters to legislators is what he was getting at in that particular thing. So I want to ask you this, because this is something I think that's very interesting. We don't really have a conversation much about that in public. And I think it's a really good conversation to have. Roberta, we're out here saving the world. It's a thankless task on our keyboards. So you and I had a discussion the other day about a vote, a specific vote, and I'll leave it up to you to discuss what it was. But the conversation was so interesting because you said, people say vote your conscience, but then really as a representative of the district, you're supposed to be voting with, what the district, in the way the district asks you to vote. But then in that same thought process, if the district elects you, then the district agrees with your ideas and platforms, right? So it's a really interesting thing to think about. And I love the way we sussed that out on the phone the other day. So I was going to ask you if we could do that here, because I just think it's pretty instructive.
Do you recall, and I don't mind talking about it, do you recall which specific bill we was talking about?
It was the university bill.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was making sure we was on the same page. Yeah, absolutely. So I have one college in my district, which is Connors State College. And they asked me to vote no on a bill because they felt like that it was going to hurt them. In all reality, I actually think it could hurt them by not voting, because I think it may hurt their online enrollment. And so I know there's a senator that authored that bill that is actually going to talk to the president, because it did pass without me anyways. And so, but because the university didn't like the bill and they asked me to vote no, I voted no. And so, it is what it is. I told the author of the bill, I went up to him and said, hey, here's where I'm at on it. And I think those conversations need to happen as people. You need to explain. You don't have to, you represent your district. If you don't want to tell the author of a bill why you voted no on it, I just think explanation goes a long ways. And I think that's the same way we we do with our children, because I think there was a generation there that just said no all the time and wouldn't never tell their children why we're saying no.
Because I
And
said so.
because I said so. And so I'm one of those guys that says, well, here's why. And so I caught the senator walking down the hallway, and I told him, I said, hey, I'm going to have to be a no on that. Here's why. I left it at that. Here's why. There's nothing to debate, because he asked me to vote no. He's my constituent. I'm voting no. So, and he didn't blame me for that.
But then here was the interesting point, because you said I only got one phone call on that bill.
Yep.
And so if you don't get any other phone calls.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, so it's a real, I don't think that people understand that there is a fine line, and I'm putting caucus out of the way because frankly, I'm on a tear to get everybody out of caucus. Caucus is a bad thing because that's groupthink. You're an individual representing an individual district of individuals. There's no group in any of that.
Can I tell my funny about that? Can I tell my joke about that?
Sure.
About what I told you? So that was the very first day, and Senator Dossett started out the morning. So that was the very first day. We got sworn in about 8:55. The gavel tapped at 9. We began voting on bills. And the very first bill, Senator Dossett come over to my desk, leaned down and said, great job. You're doing great. Way to go. And I was like, okay, I pushed the button. And so all morning long, every single time she'd look over, give me the thumbs up. You're doing great. Even tell it to me, like, doing great, doing great. And I appreciated the encouragement, because I was getting tired of having to reach up there and push that. Like, it was hurting. I mean, I was getting. And so after lunch, they ran that bill and I voted no. And so it meant that I voted with a particular group. And so Senator Nice told me, she said, hey, thanks for standing with us on that bill. And I turned around and I said, you're welcome. And I said, and I turned back around real quick and I said, but I am a little offended. And she said, oh, how so? I said, because all morning long, Senator Dossett told me, great job, you're doing great. And I said, the one time I vote with you, she doesn't tell me good job. So that's just politics. And people have to learn that. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, you're right. It's true. But so I think the other point to make here, though, in that conversation is, isn't it important for your constituents to reach out to you?
100%. So last night at McIntosh County GOP, I brought that up. Representative Tim Turner brought it up. He spoke after me. And I was only there 5 days. And I told him, I said, guys, I only heard on a couple of bills. I only heard from my district on 2 bills. And we took many votes. And so Representative Tim Turner got up after me and he kind of echoed what I said. And he said, Linnell was the only person in the room that reached out to him and asked him to vote and, kind of gave a reason behind it. So absolutely, we've got to have people engaging. And so that kind of comes along with the whole GOP territory and what they're trying to accomplish. We got to be more than just one track minded, because if we're just focused on energy only, we're going to lose a lot of good, either repealers, good legislation. There's things out there so we need people that can focus on this area and then another group focus on this area. And so prime example, last night when they was up talking, Turner was talking and he was talking about green energy and some of the bills that they're going to run this upcoming year, some really great bills that they have in the works as far as wind energy. And so, I'm sitting there at the table and I'm going, we've got to collectively figure out, if we don't like wind energy, if we don't like solar, if we don't like nuclear, if we don't like natural gas, what are we going? Are we going to put the hamster back on the wheel? What are we going? We need to. So if this representative in this group is going to work on wind energy, we need to have another group working on solar. We need to have another group working, instead of just trying to, and that's, so I'm saying all that to say this. Not everybody in the district is going to be all about wind energy. Not everybody in the district is going to be about biosolids. Not everybody in the district is going to be about education. And I campaigned on this. People would ask me, what's the most important thing in Senate District 8? And here's what I'd tell them, Jenny. I'd say, if you're in public education, education is the most important thing in your life. If you're in healthcare, healthcare is the most important thing in your life. And of course, county commissioners, people that live out in the country, that's every morning they get up and go to work and come home. All they think about is the terrible conditions of the roads. And so no jobs, no taxes. If you're in that field, if you're a business owner in Okmulgee, Henrietta, Eufaula, Shakota, economic development is the biggest thing in the district. And so in my district, we really need those things. I mean, it really is. And I might have told you this last time I was on the show. I said it at Edmond. I'll say it again for those that might not have listened last time. I joked about this, said Okfuskee County, where I was born and raised, lived my whole life. We don't have a single stoplight in the entire county. We don't even have a Walmart in the entire county. And so people can't grasp, how rural we really are as far as healthcare. The Creek Nation has the hospital down in Okemah, and that's our healthcare. So
Yeah.
we've got to be engaged. And so I guess as a senator, my request to the grassroots movement is we need to be taking more of these issues out into the county, to the district, and saying, and kind of educating people. And matter of fact, the last Okfuskee County No Wind Turbines meeting I was at, I told them, I said, I want to take more of an education approach on this meeting. And we need to educate our neighbors. We need to educate those that has a lease, those that are looking at leasing. And so let's take it as an education standpoint. And so that would be my message to the grassroots is take it as an education thing. I don't know everything about every bill. I'm not a subject matter expert. I'm a talker. But that don't mean, so, and I've said that a long time because I'm a talker and I like to tell jokes and be funny. I like to be just as surprised what comes out of my mouth as you are. And so, I don't know everything. So therefore, it's going to take experts in the field, that grassroots, whoever it is, that they've got to inform us, and they got to don't just tell us the no, but explain it and do research. And I'm not trying to give all the grassroots movement a job, but we've got to have logic. And I'm going back to what I said, because I like to explain to my people why I'm voting the way I'm voting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really important conversation to have because there's a platform. I mean, if you're going to run as a Republican, there's a platform, and there are people who come together to create that platform, and it's very meaningful to them. So if you're going to run as a Republican, then they expect you to stick to that platform, right? But then you've also got the Bible, and you've also got the Constitution to throw in the mix. And we hope that the Republican platform, as a Republican, would, meet all of those things. But there's still things that you have to think about. But
Sure.
when somebody calls, like you had, from the university, and say, this bill isn't going to work for us. If nobody else is saying, hey, you need to vote for that bill because blah, 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 then it seems to me that you don't have much of a choice, because you heard from, somebody in your district. And I'm hammering on that point for a reason. My own representative voted twice yes on SB 224, which was the bill about connecting the databases together to create a seamless database for all children so that we can make sure we have them in the little system. And I told him I texted him, hey, Representative John George, I want you to vote no for this bill. And he literally had a conversation with me about how he didn't really need to listen to that, or he hadn't heard people from his district tell him about that, when I have text messages, showing that I did. So I think it's a really important thing. If you're not going to be involved in the process, and you're not going to know your representative, and you're not going to reach out to them, then you have nobody to blame but yourself,
Right.
right?
So
I mean, as a
absolutely,
constituent, yeah. But then if
absolutely.
you do reach out to your representative and they, blow you off, then that representative needs to go. We need to find
Right.
somebody else to replace that representative with somebody who's going to listen to you. So I just thought it was a super interesting conversation that you and I had that we don't really have in public.
Yep. So, let me bring up another bill. So the nurse practitioner bill,
Oh yeah.
that was a very,
Oh.
I wouldn't say controversial, but kind of, maybe you could classify it as that. So I had,
Well, a lot of people were very interested in it, and there was a lot of lobbying, a lot of lobbyist interest in that.
sure. So I spoke to one nurse practitioner just outside of my district, and I had about 6 please vote for this messages, phone calls, and 1 please vote no. And so, there was a lot of things that was said about that bill. But when I had 6 different people call and ask me to support that bill that was in the nurse, so let's just break it down. Some people said that it was going to open the door for MPs and PAs to be able to prescribe the chemical abortion pill. I, I don't foresee that it's going to do that, and I could be wrong. That's my opinion. I don't think it's going to do that. Uh, when you study it out and you look and you say the MDs are getting 20,000 to sign off, and they can have up to 5, so they're making 100,000 a year signing off, and most of them's not even checking. Most of them's not even looking, so they're making 100 grand off this. And I get it. Most of us would say, you know what, if you want to be an MD, if you want to write scripts, then you go put the time in education. And so what I'm saying, and so I guess I'm trying to crawl my way through why I voted yes for this bill. Again, I had 6 people to ask me to vote for it, at least. I believe it was around 6, and 1 no. And so I'm looking at it and I'm going, my wife texted me 4. I don't know if she meant I had 4 people or if they can write up to 4. Maybe she's talking about, she'll have to explain that to me. And so, anyways, I voted yes because I feel like it'll directly affect my district. I didn't feel like it was against the Constitution. I didn't feel like it was against the Bible. I had people asking me to vote for it. And so that's why I voted for it, and I would have that. And so if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you was wrong on that. Well, I'm man enough to say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't have that information in front of me at that time. And again, that's why we need to have these conversations prior to a vote instead of giving a scorecard afterwards and saying, look how sorry you are. So,
Yeah.
and again, I'll use Representative Turner because we was at a meeting last night, GOP meeting last night together. And that's what he made up. He made a great point. He said, if it doesn't go against the Bible and it doesn't go against the state constitution, and it's something that'll help, Senator Logan is the phrase that he used. If it'll help his area that's outside of my area, he said, and he asked me to support it, and it doesn't go against the Bible, doesn't go against the Constitution, and it's not going to raise taxes. He said, then if he asks me, I'm going to reach out and probably try to help my colleague. So there's some of that goes on. And I get it. You got to be careful in that. I get it. I get it. It's a careful walk. Let's just be honest. Because you can't open Pandora's box on the whole, you voted, I supported your bill. I need you to support my bill. Well, now it's a bill that maybe is going to raise taxes or cost the state money, or so it's absolutely a careful walk. And I said all that to say this, just we need to be engaged, but we need to give explanations and we need to do it in a timely manner. And hopefully maybe the agenda will get put out earlier, and maybe it'll give time for people to be able to ask questions prior to the votes on the floor the next day.
Well, I mean, I think you make a great point. John Boyce says, when you do all the work of researching a subject, present it, explain the downfalls of an upcoming bill on the subject, then your worthless representative gets up and makes comments opposite of yours, and people believe it due to them being a representative. People are blind to facts, and they look at people on the self pedestal. And I think that's I see so many things on Facebook, especially right now because the Chamber of Commerce is out doling out their awards
Right.
to people, and they do that because it's a propaganda tool. I mean, look, your representative got an award for the Chamber of Commerce. Well, they don't realize that the Chamber of Commerce is the one pushing workforce development. It's the one pushing kids to get into a database so you can track them to make sure that you're giving the right amount of tax incentives and tax credits to the right number of businesses so you can have the right number of kids training to be in those businesses. It's an absolute racket, and it's horrible, and it does nothing for education, and it pigeonholes kids. But you'll see on Facebook so many constituents going, I'm so proud of my rep. They got an award from the Chamber of Commerce. Yay! And you just think, do you know what that award necessarily means? Are you familiar with what that actually does, and that probably isn't a good thing for you or your kid or your district? So I think there is some of that's got to be, which is what I love about you talking about. We have to talk about these things, and we have to educate people because they simply don't know, and until you explain them, they're not gonna, I mean, it's not suddenly gonna download into their noggin.
That's right. So, and that's one thing I think President Trump, if you noticed, I've kind of noticed this about him. He'll do kind of polling on Twitter and ask people's opinion, kind of on a large scale. But there is some bills that we probably need to get opinions on, poll on, like where you at on this, and just throw it out to John Q. Public and say, hey, what's your thoughts on this? Because, like I said, most time people don't know. People don't know what we're voting on that day. People don't know what's coming down the pike unless it's a data bill, unless it's a green energy bill. Let's talk about that for just a second, because on the way to Oklahoma City yesterday, I told my wife as we was driving down the road, I said, I read a couple of posts prior to that within the 12-hour window, some of your grassroots people that was totally against RFK and his wearables and kind of, so as I'm driving to Oklahoma City, I told my wife, I said, here we are once again. We're going to stand with RFK. I said, and I've got people saying, why are you doing this? He's trying to push the data wearables. What are you getting into? And then you got the other side saying, look at all these so-called conservatives going to support a former Democrat. He's still a Democrat, so you're like, sometimes you can't win, right? And so I hate to be that guy that says sometimes you can't win. But like I said, I read several social media post within that 12-hour window of, I can't believe y'all's going to see RFK. And so my reason was, there's some great things that he's doing.
Yeah, so long as we're careful about not listening to rhetoric and following what's actually happening, because that's my problem. And I think I speak for a lot of people on this show who, you hear the rhetoric, which is propaganda. I mean, rhetoric and propaganda can be synonymously used terms. So we hear a lot of that. But then, because we're all excited about the rhetoric and the propaganda, we don't follow exactly what's going on from there. And right. So I think, and I didn't watch it, I'm going to have to watch it, but I was told by a friend this morning, actually, that basically what Governor Stitt signed was just a useless piece of paper that's completely meaningless. And that's got to stop. We have to stop saying, well, we're going to do this, but then not really do that. We're just using lip service to make people think we're doing something that we're not. That's what has to stop. And I think people like you have been elected to put a stop to that, to say, no, we're not going to talk about this one way and then do something different. And I think that's probably exactly what may have happened yesterday.
So that, when I said about the theatrics and the drama and that was one thing that we knew happened. But once you get on the floor and you see it firsthand when you debate on a bill for an hour, 45 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, and you know it's not going to pass. And so I think I'd asked Senator Jett, I asked him, I said, all right, so explain to me, why are we going on and on and on and on and on, knowing that there is not enough votes? What's the purpose of this? And so you get a firsthand, lesson that they're doing this because there's somebody out there watching that they're trying to impress. And the majority of our elected officials are working toward their next step, the long game, as they say.
Yeah.
And so they're not even focused on the right now in the moment. And so I think it's our job as elected officials to be focused on the right now. What is in front of us? What is the needs in front of us? And so if I'm up there just trying to put on a show, I'm not doing what I was put there to do. So like I said, I did learn that the very first day, and I'm thinking, why are we doing this? What is all this theatrics about? So learned it real quick that it is real. The whole building, there's theatrics in the whole building, caucus meeting, floor votes, all of that. So probably committees, we seen it. I didn't get to personally sit in on them, but we seen some of the recordings of some of the theatrics that even takes place in committees. So like I said,
well, it's funny. The Japanese have something called kabuki theater, which is a type of theater in which people dress up and pretend not to be themselves. And so you use that kind of term for so much of what happens. It's just kabuki theater. I mean, people are dressing up and pretending to be something that they're not. And so I wanted to get to this comment because I think it's a really good one. When I got into politics years ago, I was surprised how often our reps had no clue about the people's side of things. They were well informed about the corporate side. We need to be louder than the lobbyists if we want to have change. And what Roberta said is spot on. The question should be, is what I'm voting on going to violate someone's rights? If the answer is yes, your vote should always be no. And that's true because I say it over and over again, and Michael says it too. The only job of any elected official is to protect the liberty of the voter, of the constituent, of the citizen, of the state. It's to protect their liberty. And if a tax is going to take away the liberty, if a business incentive is going to take away liberty, if fill in the blank is going to take away liberty, then the answer to that always has to be no. And not all votes are like that. Just like we talked about the university vote.
Yeah.
But the ones that have always got to be a no. But it's hard for people to think about that once they're in that situation, because then you literally have to stop and run through the whole scenario. Wait, if I do this, then, and it's not an easy task. And I think people think it's an easy task, but it's not. And then Gabe said, somebody's going to need to run a bill to solidify what Stitt stated, because yes, what he stated was meaningless. Saying we have government with the consent of the governor's lip service, we absolutely do not have that. Bryan Logan teach you how to he's sick and tired. Did you see that video, Brian?
I did not.
It was Brian Hill during the 224 vote made a proclamation about how he was so tired about going over these things about the data collection over and over again, and it was just kind of funny. So far says, anyone else looking up stock options on wearables? Dexcom, Abbott. Some of us have kids that have to wear these devices. Sandra and I both have children who are type 1 diabetics. They're incredibly expensive, but now companies are using lasers to measure your blood sugar and contact lenses and earlobe devices, not FDA approved yet. Those in the know will likely be investing soon. I'm guessing they'll come out with some that don't involve scary cannula injections. This is in your ear. With needles like our diabetic kids have to wear. And I'm not sure. I think it didn't come all the way through, but I think that's another thing that we do have to think about.
Jenny, I wanted to make another comment on
Oh yeah,
that
go
liberty.
please. You
On
have
that
to just
liberty
interrupt
issue,
me. You know
especially
that.
with like Brian's example of voting for that university bill, because the university was kind of the only people that reached out to you, or in some of the other things that you kind of mentioned. You know, what do we do if a bill, Brian, has, is going to violate our liberty in some capacity, but the only people that reach out to you is the other side that says, yes, I want you to vote for this. How do we handle those situations, do you think?
On something like that, that's going to violate your liberty, going to violate, like I said, either the Constitution or biblical principles, you simply have to explain them. I have to be a no on this. So, I mean, there's times where you may not have but one person reach out, or you may have 20 people, but if it violates liberty, there's going to be times that you go against them. So there will be times that you say no. And so when you look at it that way, you say, hey, I've got to be a no on this. And if you're elected in a 4-year term, then 4 years later, they have the rights by all means to vote you out. But I've got to be a no. This is my moral compass. This is my guide. This is where my heart is. So your heart, your votes, your mind, it ought to all be tied together. There ought to be a moral compass guiding you on those votes. And so that's probably the biggest thing. We talk, I've heard it said often, let's look at the policy, not the author. So that was said a lot in that 5 days that I was there, especially the last day. We got to look at the policy. We got to look at the policy. And that's true, but you can't say it every single time, because when you're looking at the policy, if it violates your liberty, then hey, this is why we're voting no on this policy.
Yeah.
Well,
Roberta
I sure hope a lot of your morals rub off on some of the other guys down there.
So, I was given great advice before we went in. Stay true to God, and absolutely, you better the old song says, just a closer walk with thee. If you're going into a place such as this, you better have a close walk with the Lord, because here's a little illustration that I used years ago in children's church, and this has probably been about 18, 20 years ago. And I told them how influential things are in life. And so I went back to my own childhood and I said, what's the first thing you do after you get through watching a Western? You want to jump on a horse. You want to play cowboys, man. You want to jump on a horse. When I was a kid growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, that was probably your Chuck Norris and even your Jean-Claude Van Damme. And man, my dad would be watching one of those blood and thriller. And next thing I know, I'm walking through the house kicking things. I'm wanting to karate chop something. And the same thing with race car movies. You go out and get in your car, next thing you know, you're doing donuts in the Walmart parking. I mean, I never would do that, but somebody probably would. And so we see how easily we're persuaded. Like, people's like, oh no, not me. And like I said, you're so easily persuaded and you don't even realize. So that's why I think we better be on our A game throughout the whole term, not just during session. You got to guard your heart, whether you're in session, whether you're in district, whether you're in, no matter what. You could be in a summer legislative, conference. You got to guard your heart.
Hopefully you won't be at that.
So, well, and I'm just using all kinds of examples. The biggest word that came to me over and over throughout campaigning, and don't let me drop this. So if you have me back on the show, bring it up, remind me. The biggest thing I'd say is we got to have discernment. I seen that over and over on the campaign trail. You got to have discernment. Watch what you say. Watch what you're saying. Watch who you're associating with. And so, I'll use Jesus as a good example, because he should be our example. There's times that he communicated. There's times that he but he was on guard 24/7. Now he knew everything, and we don't know. We're not all knowing, but at the same time, we've got to guard our heart and mind.
Completely agree. Roberta has another piece of good advice for you. You reach out to your grassroots organizations that you have a relationship with, and you ask them for education on the subject. And I would say that that's huge, because one of the biggest disappointments that I've had is that representatives and senators that have gotten elected that I've had relationships with don't call me and say, I got this bill. I've had two people do that, and one of them is Kendall Sakieri. So thank you, Kendall. So many of them don't ever call and say, well, hey, I knew you were kind of an expert in this area. What are your thoughts on that? So that was my biggest disappointment over people that I'd help get elect or, support in some way. And they never call me up and go, hey, what do you think about this? So I think Roberta is like smack on 100% right there. And Julia says, and this is true, if it costs money, we don't often think about that. But if a program costs money, unless it's statutorily, it's in the Constitution. Like I rage against public education, but it's in the Constitution. Until we're going to change the Constitution, that's just raging against the machine. So otherwise, if it is not in the Constitution and they want to take taxpayer dollars for it, you automatically have to say no, because it's going to violate somebody's liberty, because taxes aren't voluntary. So until the government quits pointing a gun in my face and stealing the money out of my pocket, they don't get to take it. And they certainly don't get to take it to waste it on crap, like trying to get kids into a database or, fill in the blank that's not going to be good for me. So not only is my money being stolen from me by my government, but to turn around and do something evil with it to somebody else. Why are we giving all this money to DHS? It's not a constitutionally necessary thing, yet we give all of this money to them. Oh, well, we're a shortfall $10 million. Oops. But we're going to kidnap children from their families. How does this happen, Bryan?
Yeah. So I would say part of that goes back to what we call the grassroots hyper-focused group. This is probably the sad reality is you look at my first election, the primary, there was just a hair over 5,000 people that got out and voted. Out of 26,000 registered Republicans, 5,000 got out and voted. In the runoff, there was like 3,900, somewhere just shy of 4,000. So we had a big drop off. And then in the general election, when you're talking 26,000 Republicans, 8,000 or so independents, and there was an independent on the ticket. And then maybe 15, 16,000 Democrats. Out of that population, again, we had just over 5,000 people get out and vote. And so you really see the hyper-focused people in a district of 90,000 people, you're getting 5,000 people to engage.
That's horrible.
So when you get to talking about data, most of the public either don't care, they're so disengaged, they're so busy in life.
But Thunder just won the championship.
Yep. And President Trump,
right around the corner, Bryan. Football season's right around the corner.
So that's where we're at. Unfortunately, that is where we're at. And so I guarantee you I could poll the little community that I live in. And if I ask, there would only be a handful of people that would even have opinion or knowledge about data. So, like I said, that's just a sad reality that we're living in. So that would kind of bring up another question, and I don't know how much time we have. Another question you could, propose would be, here's where we're at, I guess. And I'm trying to be careful how I word this. So and I'm asking you guys, I'll maybe asking the public here on comments.
Yeah, we have a lot of people watching. You're apparently very popular.
If the people in my district are uneducated or unlearned, and I'm not saying they are, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying on a subject, if they don't care, if they're absent on it, so I've looked at this. and I've kind of wondered this myself as a current lawmaker. Do we jump over into other people's districts and you know, I'm trying to be careful on this. I think you know where I'm going with this. So Roberta, kind of interesting. Roberta was on the 5th floor of the Capitol, maybe the second day or so. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Roberta and I'm like, I don't know her from somewhere. Where do I know her from? And so, Roberta, if you're there, you can wave or something. And so she turns around and she's like, do I know you from somewhere? And I'm like, I think so, but I don't know where. And so I was like, do you have any connections to Shawnee? And she was like, I do. And so anyways, we put it all together finally that when I was a program manager over community development block grants, we had a connection there. I'd met her several times through that. And so I was like, it kind of gave my mind some rest. So saying that, Roberta doesn't live in my district,
Right.
but she's still a resident of the state of Oklahoma. So we look at that, and here's my question. How can you get your own people to reach out? How can we get our constituents to reach out to us? So, and is that important, Jenny? Michael, is that important that our constituents are reaching out versus somebody in somebody else's district?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and make that
probably, yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably the most important thing, Brian, but in my opinion, by design, and you kind of hinted to it earlier, people are so busy. I mean, people are just barely even getting by with how bad the economics are and the whole money system. And that's for a whole nother conversation. But in my opinion, it's all by design to keep us from critical thinking about what is happening down there at the Capitol in one way or another. Because like I'll tell you, I don't have time to read all these bills. I mean, I'm trying to depend on, my legislators to do that and make a good decision. I mean, I'll try to contact them when I can, but there's no way I could go. I mean, you as the senator, you don't even have enough time to read all these things, and that's your job. So, I mean, to me, it's all designed, to just completely encapsulate us in the rat race of life so that the government can do whatever the hell they want to do. That's my thoughts.
And you're probably accurate. It's probably.
Well, and I want to put this up because I think it's a good time, and it's true. My impression on my first visit to watch the floor proceedings it was such a huge waste of time and total nonsense. We have a true battle going on, and none of it was addressed. I had arrived looking forward to hearing the discussions on Marxists and education, foreign ownership of Oklahoma land, and sat there for hours listening to improving seat belts, blah, 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 nothing serious all day. And I do think that's the other problem, which dovetails in the exact conversation we were having. Not only do they throw all of this stuff at us, so it's so hard to parse it out and pay attention, but then so much of it's just BS.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about liberty, and people always get pissed off when I say this, so I love to say it. If you want to talk about liberty, it's let me decide whether I want to wear a seatbelt or not.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, if I want to not wear a seatbelt, you don't need to give me a ticket over that. It's my decision. I'll make that decision for myself. If I'm stupid enough to decide I don't want to wear a helmet when I'm tooling around on a motorcycle at 75 miles an hour and my head hits the pavement and turns into a watermelon, then that's my problem. It's my issue.
And I shouldn't have to pay for it, Jenny. If you get hurt like that, I shouldn't have to pay for that.
But here's the thing.
In my opinion.
You either have insurance or you don't have insurance. If you have insurance, it pays for it, period. So again, it's kind of like we talked about with the surveillance thing. We had to have the surveillance cameras to make sure that people were actually getting insurance, to make sure that for uninsured motorists, right? That was the whole bottom line. Well, you need to have uninsured motorists, and it's in order to make sure that you have uninsured motorists, we're going to make sure that we put up this surveillance system to catch your tags so that we can check on you, because that's not big government. If I want to have insurance, I'm going to have insurance. If I don't want to have insurance, I'm not going to have insurance. You shouldn't be able to make me. You shouldn't. But you're right, though. You shouldn't have to pay for my mistakes, but whose job is it to prevent that? It's the government. You say we're not going to pay for your this or that or the other thing if you get into a problem. But that's what we do. We pay for their problem. We say, oh, you can't do that. But then if you do that, we'll go ahead and pay for it. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. But on top of that, Jenny, all of that only exists because we're allowed to go into this massive debt. I mean, ultimately, that's what produces all of this stuff, is that we can just go into infinite debt and then you can do whatever you want because there's no consequence.
Earl's daughter says it's like the police will arrest a shoplifter from Walmart over a pair of sunglasses, but if someone steals the tools of your small business, you're tough. You're SLL. Our tax dollars are not working for us. The GR list will be going out to legislators with contacts on specific subjects that people are in the weeds on, not the fluff the lobbyists use to sell you and other resources. So there you go. You've got Moms for Liberty, who's going to be able to produce information that should be able to help you. DHS is an NGO turned government touchless organization. People would vote with their dollars if taxes were voluntary. If you vote yes, you pay for it. If you don't, it's optional. And I love what Dorm says. Like advertising private biotech, pharmaceutical tech companies to promote every American wearing device to collect our biometric health data with our tax dollars. How do we get that deal for donkey milk? The government can advertise for us and then make all the people drink donkey milk. That sounds like a great idea. And her point is well taken. I mean,
as silly as it sounds, it's pretty accurate.
It is. If people spent half the time with their Bible over watching sports, America would be a lot better. True that. This is a safe place. You don't have to be careful with your words. Rhonda says your district is fortunate to have you as their senator. Dorn says, I used to believe I had representatives at the Capitol that supported my best interests, so I didn't pay attention or care.
Yeah.
Dorn gets the comment of the day award.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you elect people because it's just what you said, Michael. You don't have the time to do that. So you elect people based on what they say. Oh, yes, I promise you, I am going to uphold your values and principles when I get to the Capitol. And then the first thing they do is sit down and have a lobbyist lunch and go, oh, yeah, okay, well, I'll vote for this and this and this. And then that's what happens. And you don't check up on it because you think that you're voting for the person who has your value system.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you from my own experience, prior to COVID, that's exactly how it was. I didn't care. I didn't know anybody down at the Capitol. I didn't care about anything. I mean, I was too busy just trying to survive at times. Sure. And then you just come to where we are now with that massive overreach of COVID. That's what woke me up. That's why I ran for school board, the whole 9 yards. But I see now just how the veil was pulled over my eyes. Because, yeah, I did care about sports. I did care about the Sooners or the Cowboys or Thunder or this or that and all the stuff going on with my kids. And then, I was so busy. There was zero, and I mean zero time for politics or legislation or what's going on or the lobbying and all of that. Zero time for me. But I have to make time. I mean, I literally just make time to be informed.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're at a Thunder game all the time and whatever, there are so many good comments, and I can't think we get. But here's one that I think, Bryan Logan for State Senate 2025. I'd encourage you to start sharing about these bills with your social media page or set up a Signal chat and it sounds like you already have because you said they were dinging you at 3 o'clock in the morning. People,
I don't know when Linnell Medley sleeps. I don't know if he ever sleeps.
Another great option would be for you to set up a Google document with until there is a turnpike or wind farm or DHS issues, people are just normally living life.
Yeah.
Once you're okay with enslaving your neighbor to pay the bills, the sky's the limit. That's just true though. I need to find a way to divide and conquer on the bills. Remind people they can take a copy of the bill and drop it into Grok and ask Grok what it means. The only problem is the more we use Grok for that stuff, the dumber it's going to get because that's the way it is. My experience is that not and this is a good comment. My experience is it's not that people don't care. Most are absolutely just fatigued, feeling powerless. So what's the point? This is what I need to hear, and we need hope.
Well, so I'll say that real quick. You're 100% right. You know, you got little league sports, you got all kinds of things going on. We're a busy society. We're not only a busy society, we are a right now microwave society where we want things in an instant. We are driving further than we ever have. We're going more places. And so the last thing that somebody wants to do when they come in from an 8-hour, 9-hour shift, and maybe they drove an hour one way to work. So they get in the evening, they sit down and eat supper with their spouse, their family. You know, they want to relax. And so thank the Lord, I guess, that there is people willing to get out there and do this on their own. And I'll use this as an example. So like last night or yesterday, we was at the Capitol. Wednesday was at the Capitol. Left the Capitol, drove back to the house, dropped my wife off, and then went to Eufaula. Got home about 11:30 last night. This morning, been on the phone with the mayor. Another conversation via text. Jumped on the phone here. I've got to be in Muskogee at noon. I've got to be in Okemah at 6 o'clock for 2 more county GOP meetings today. And so I said all that to say this. When it comes to legislation this coming session, I probably will not run a bunch of bills. Number one, I will be a true freshman, if you count my 5 days of last session. And so I'm going to focus on good legislation. I'm going to focus on jumping on some really good bills, probably co-author some bills. But I am not going to try to jump out there and run as many bills because I don't feel that that's what I was elected for. I don't feel like I was elected to run 75 bills. I feel like I was elected to either run good repealers on bad bills or run good legislation that is needed for we the people. And so I'll go ahead and throw that out there. My goal is not to see how many bills I can run, just to have a title of, you know, look how many things I got accomplished. And some of those things will either hurt the district or hurt somebody.
Well, I'm sorry to have to break this to you, but I'm not sure that you'll be getting a chamber award with that attitude.
I know. So the child advocacy report card, did you see that went out this week? So the child advocacy report card went out, and I was so glad because on a footnote they put Bryan Logan was exempt from this report card because he only got to set 5 days. And I was like, hey, I got to pass this year.
What?
They probably,
I don't know.
They probably won't love me next year, but I got to pass this year.
Well, let me just point out that OICA is the one that wants to go into homeschool families' homes and survey everybody there to make sure children are okay. So I don't know that that's necessarily one you want to be on the radar of. This is a good comment too. People also simply, and this is another problem. I mean, think about what we've just talked about. I mean, these are all significant things. They're not minor. They're not small things. People simply don't trust politicians right now. It's a very fractured relationship, constituent to politician. I think that's so true.
That is accurate.
And Rhonda says stopping bad bills is so more important than how many bills you run.
Yeah.
I agree, Rhonda. Rhonda's an all-star. Rhonda's a trooper.
Rhonda does more work for this state than any one person. I swear. I swear. I've never met a person who has as much energy as Rhonda Peterson. I just have not met that person yet.
My advice for Rhonda is I'll give her a Bible verse this morning and say, you know, don't be weary in well doing because you're doing a great job. And although it's probably really, really, really tiresome jumping out and trying to put herself out there, give herself over and over to different districts. I mean, I've watched as she's drove countless hours, put many, many miles on her vehicles. And the reward is the state of Oklahoma. We are the recipient of Rhonda, the likes of Rhonda and the Polly Tylers out there knocking countless doors, driving through other districts, So want to say much
Using
love.
their own money.
That's right. Much love and respect for those ladies and
They're
anybody else.
phenomenal. Roberta, this is your last piece of advice, Roberta. So because Bryan's got 7 more things to do today, just go in there and
Where did anybody see my yes button?
It's just so funny. Just go rip it up, and then you don't even have. Then it's so easy to do things because you're like, I only have the no.
So, Roberta, I learned on day 2 that if you push both buttons simultaneously, it clears the vote.
Does it
So,
really?
yeah. So you can toggle between yes and no, but if you hit both at the same time, it clears the vote, and you're yeah. So,
Interesting.
like I said, so if you was watching the board this whole time, Bryan's having to learn all this on his own. So I'm just yeah, you can clear the vote. Another thing that I learned, which I probably wouldn't advise or wouldn't do, don't walk a vote. Don't walk a vote. And so Thursday is either Wednesday afternoon or Thursday. Once we got sworn in and started voting, if you seen me get up and leave, it was because HR still hadn't even completed they couldn't do any paperwork until I was sworn in. And so HR was like, hey, and they leave at 4:30. And so I had to get up and leave to go do paperwork with HR. And I can't remember I think that might have been that Wednesday afternoon. So if you seen me leave the floor and miss some votes, it's because I had to go do paperwork. Brand new. So like I said, it was a very, very big learning curve. And I'm looking forward to, and I think I'll have a lot more confidence going into next session. Just the whole thing, kind of knowing. So you mentioned Kendall Sakurari earlier. So she sits to the left of me on the floor, and she probably got tired of babysitting me because I would ask her about bills. I would ask her, what her opinion was. Love Senator Jett. And I want to have Senator Jett's ability to smile while telling you no. And, so, but she probably got, and I told her, I said, Kendall, I told her after session, maybe it was, I told her, I said, Kendall, I said, hey, you got to realize most of the time I'm just being silly. She kind of looked at me and was like, that's good to know. And I was like, most of the time I'm not being serious. And she was like, okay. So you'll have to replay that. You'll have to convey that message to her. Say, Kendall, Bryan is a jokester. Just tell her that if you get a chance to talk to her. Bryan is a jokester. So guys, if you're watching, I try to be serious, but sometimes I have to have a little fun to get through this rat race. So, like I said, it was interesting. I look forward to serving District 8. I look forward to going in there next year and having just a little bit more experience and try to do something great, And like I said, whether that's hold the line, whether that's a no on bad legislation, whether that's a yes on good legislation. Like I said, there's good bills out there. There's some bills that need to have repealers. Let's talk about the military bill real quick. The last night, the 5-hour standoff. So I voted no on the floor because it was discussed and there was some holes in the bill. And so I voted no. And let me tell you why I voted. Let me tell you why I voted no. Because being in a contractor business, pastor, you don't do contracts. You don't do business with, I'm going to change some things down the road. And so that's kind of the agreement that we had got told, well, we'll fix it between now and next year. I don't do business that way. I've been burnt too many times, and you open the door for people to be burned. And so, why would you allow that? So I voted no the first round, and then on the veto, I stayed a no. It had a lot of holes in the bill, so wasn't a great bill. So that's why I voted no. And I'll go ahead and throw this out there, and I might lose some of you. It was brought up that bill could potentially benefit a current lawmaker. Well, I can't use that because I have healthcare professionals in my family. I have educators in my family. Any bill that we vote on in that building could potentially benefit somebody. It was not a good bill. End of the day.
Well, that one's I'm probably take you the opposite side on that because it was direct. Because I understand what you're saying in that there are things that you couldn't help. They would benefit people. And I understand that what you're saying. But in this particular case, that was not the case. It was a specific thing. So in those specific cases, that's just got to be a no. Were you, just out of curiosity, did you decide from that day that it's okay to have a liquor cabinet so you can just imbibe whenever you are reading bills and feeling a little frisky?
I'm not a drinker. I abstain from alcohol, and I have a good time without it. And I could only imagine how dangerous and how much funnier I would think I would be. Yeah, I mean, I would probably not try it myself personally, and I wouldn't recommend it at all. That's my humble opinion. It's not a great place to be doing that. I mean, it's kind of like guns. I would say it like this: guns and alcohol don't mix. I would say government and alcohol don't mix.
I would have to agree with you. And so does Sandra. This is a good comment, and we'll wrap it up here with this. Indirectly, you represent me and a lot of Oklahomans outside your district because we have vacation homes at Eufaula. And so that is something that's kind of, we don't often think about that, but yes, in certain situations, you are actually representing people who also do have homes in that district. So that's a good point, Dorn. I really appreciate you bringing that one up. And Dana said, the military bill that was brought up was to benefit one person. So, in those kinds of things. Yeah. Okay.
Right. In saying that, I just want to say we can't use that as a one size fits all that it's going to benefit somebody, because several bills out there will benefit a current, future, past, present lawmaker. I made that statement that there are several bills out there that could potentially benefit either a past elected official, current, or future elected official. So I don't want to just hang my hat on that one thing and say, well, this was just created. I want to say that it was a bad bill.
Yeah, well,
in the beginning, it was a bad bill. Regardless of who it benefited, it was still a bad bill.
yeah.
So, and that's what I say. It was a bad bill. So it was more than just that one issue at hand. It was a bad bill that had lots of holes in it. And so the reason I even brought that up is because I don't want to pass legislation with this theory that we're going to fix it.
Yes, that's an excellent point.
Yeah. If it needs to be fixed now, why are we going to go ahead and pass it in hopes that it gets fixed? So if it's not good enough to pass, I'm not going to vote for it. Remind me of that. All of you listeners, remind me of that next year. If something comes up, say, hey, remember you said if it's not good enough now, don't pass it.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because you'll hear, well, the title's off.
Yep.
And the title continues to be off. Well, no, at some point you put the title back on and it is what it is, or it's a no. It's a big fat NO. All right. Drinking and driving. Well, some of us can't even and definitely some of us can't drink and vote. So we need to put an end to that. Bryan, it was a blessing to have you here. Thanks for taking the time to do that, because I know you are so busy and have so many other things to do. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and
pray for me. I told everybody that on the campaign trail after we got elected. That's been what I've told everybody. Pray for us. And seriously, my wife came to me the week we were sworn in, and she said, I want to take the time to try to pray for the other 47 senators. And I love that. What good are we if we can't even pray for, the Bible's kind of specific on those that, despitefully use you, those that they're cause you harm, all those things. So absolutely. I desire and covet your prayers, because it is a tough place to be.
And they work.
Yep.
Prayer works.
It works. Absolutely.
So, having been the recipient of that many times and to know it, it absolutely does. Dorn says we need more representatives like this man. Thank you. So, again, thank you for being with us. Thank you for letting so many Oklahomans who are watching today know who you are and something about you. And thank you for doing what you're doing, because you did not have an easy slog of it. God love you. And just keep hanging in there. And we will definitely pray for you.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Bryan. We'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Bye. Bye-bye.
I think Bryan is he is an amazing person, and
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how, that's why I really wanted to put that timeline up there, because I don't think people really understand what that poor man had to go through. That it wasn't the most fun situation.
Well, and the predecessor, just revamp that timeline, stepped down in November.
Okay, and well, and let's even go back further. So Senator Roger Thompson was the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee. And I don't remember, somebody will have to help me with this. I don't remember if it was Paxton or if it was, I'm pretty sure it was Paxton said, no, you're not going to be the chairman of appropriations anymore. And Senator Thompson was not happy with that. And so his solution to that was to quit, and to quit with a year left on his term.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily know that we should be, I think we should actually be aware of that factor, because we have people that are elected who do things like that. And I don't think there's, why would you do that to your district? Well, I don't get to do this anymore, so I quit.
Yeah.
So then it left them, unrepresented for the whole, that district, unrepresented for that whole, thank you. Kyle says, pro tem treat, remove Thompson, not Paxton. I appreciate that, Kyle. Thank you. But he was removed and he did quit after that happened. So I do think that that's a real issue. And then when Stitt makes the election Thompson quits in July. He basically says, I'm quitting. My resignation is effective in July. Oh, I'm sorry. He says in July that he's quitting. His resignation will be effective November 1st. I mean, I don't know why that makes sense to me, Gina. And by the way, hi, Gina. Miss you guys, you and Thompson. So he says it's official 11/1 of 24. So the governor has known since July that Thompson isn't coming back, right? And he knows when his official time is to stop. I mean, I understand that December is a holiday kind of a season, and that's kind of tough. And I get that. And in January, we live in Oklahoma and we have ice. If you don't expect ice in January, there's something wrong with you. So I get that. But it just seems like we could have had an election sooner than March 4th, right?
Well, look at all the local elections. I mean, they're in February.
They are. Absolutely are. School board? Yep, absolutely. So March 4th, April 1st runoff, May 13th election, May 21st sworn in, May 30th sine die.
Thanks for playing. Thanks for playing, Bryan.
Thanks for playing legislative roulette.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not okay. And I don't think that helped his district 8 at all. I think that was was bad.
So when Thompson stepped down, how soon did we know when that special election cycle was going to be? I mean, did Stitt put that out pretty quickly that it was going to be?
No, he didn't, because when I went to look yesterday, because I did some searches, internet searches on some articles to make sure that I had my timeline in place. And I didn't get the idea that he did it right away. I want to say that it was December or January by the time he said March 4th. I mean, somebody will have to correct me on it.
After everybody filed for the special election, or did he say it, then everybody filed? Do you know
Well,
that?
nobody can file until the election is on the books, right?
Okay.
Because there's nothing to file for. So I think there were people who had said they wanted to run for the seat after Thompson stepped down. Well, and this is a good point, Rhonda. That left their district without a vote on the most important seat in the Senate. The current pro tem that we have won a seat by only. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Good point, Rhonda, for sure. And you have to be a little cynical, I think, and think, well, yeah, that was one of the most important votes, and I had even not thought about that for some reason. So yeah, I mean, right? Because
that's what I was kind of getting at, is maybe they kind of knew who was maybe going to win that race in one way or another, and they didn't want, someone like Bryan having a vote, or being in session really, or being a factor in session at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I'm just saying that. I mean, that's the conspiracy theory in me.
Well, it's clearly speculation, but I think speculation is okay in situations like this because there are facts involved, and we've got the right to speculate on those facts. And it definitely leaves one to wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, just everything about it. I mean, to have someone come in that late, in the session already knowing that you're going to have to run the campaign again, start up back in, 6 months.
See, I think that's so hard. I mean, so those of you who are on, you really do have to give props to Bryan, just because what he's doing is way harder than most people who run for office. That's just an uphill,
Well, it's hard enough. You know how hard it is to run a campaign, but to literally run a campaign and then turn right around and start the campaign again in another 6 months is, that's just.
Yes, and basically Earl's daughter says, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, well, probably a duck. Yeah. So anyway, but he just appears to be a really quality person. Oh, and here's a comment. Catherine says, Tulsa HD 71 will need help for 2026. There was a special election here too, and another Democrat got the seat. So it looks like Tulsa HD 71, we need to get somebody back in there for 2026. So keep in touch, Catherine, so we can. Oh, and look, she's commenting on X. All right. Well, anything else?
I think no, as always, no one's coming to save us. And, not that I love a lot of things President Trump's done, but, what have we done I started making a list because we were talking about this with my son, Jenny. What have we done to fix the elections? We got midterms coming up. He's been in there, 160 days or so, almost half a year now. Those elections are going to be coming up right around the corner. What about all the J6 stuff? We pretty much know that the whole thing was a setup in one way or another. What about all the J6 stuff? What about Big Pharma? All of that stuff with Big Pharma, all the whole criminal enterprise. What about all the money with all the NGO stuff everywhere? What about Epstein? What about all that stuff? What about the amount of money that George Soros and Bill Gates and guys like that are putting into all these small races, all over the place? What is happening with all that stuff? It just drives me insane, because I don't want time to run out. And then all of a sudden, they do to Trump what they did to him in the first go around, where basically they take back the House or the Senate in one way or another, and then they stymie everything they's doing. What about Doge? Look at all the corruption they found, and what's come out of that. I mean, I want to see some freaking heads roll. I mean, if no one gets in trouble, if no one goes to jail, if no one's in prison, I mean, they'll sure put us in prison. They'll sure, went to J6, you get a knock on your door, Jenny. They'll sure come do that. What about the real criminals? That's what I want to see. I want to see people going to jail. Sorry.
Pretty sorry. I mean,
but my point is, no one's coming to save us. I mean, I guess we're going to have to, press on all those issues. We're going to have to, make sure that there's some accountability in the system. And Trump's he's done a lot of very good things. I mean, I'm not bashing him at all. I'm just saying I don't want the clock to run out on all of this stuff, because the clock is ticking every single day, and every day someone's head's not rolling is a day they're getting away with it, in my opinion.
You always say in your opinion, but there's hardly ever a time that your opinion isn't my opinion. Roberta's being
I got to put that in there in case, Jenny, you run for office again sometime in the future. I don't want to tie in like one of my rants down to like, see, here's Jenny White, here's all this. I want to make sure that we have that little clarifying factor in there.
Michael, they already have so much stuff on me. It's not even going to be worth that. I love what Roberta says. If they come to save us, it'll be a 2 year. And Rhonda makes this point. People, we have lots of you on this morning. Thank you for tuning in. Listen to what Rhonda is saying. People need to understand that he only has a year before another election, and they need to start now sending him donations to help keep him in his seat. He'll need funds to help him purchase the resources that are needed to reach the voters in his district. So, super important point there. Lisa wants to know what your t-shirt says.
Says, love your government. Everything is fine. That's the government.
Oh, but all of it's redacted.
Yeah, it's all redacted. It's all censored out. It's all censored out. That's what the government wants you to no.
Read it. Do it again. Do it again.
Love your government. Everything is fine.
It looks like the Epstein file.
Yeah, pretty much. Looks like anything coming out of the government.
Earl's daughter says, thanks again. I'm so grateful to you lovely peeps for keeping us informed. There's so much corruption, it seems impossible. That's when the real ones work. I can't agree more. We need to be handing out silver bracelets. A week after former Senator Roger Thompson submitted resignation letter, he was named CEO and executive director of the Oklahoma Osteopathic Association. And that's true. I forgot about that. I have zero hope of any of the bad guys will spend 1 minute behind bars. I think so many of us do. Jenny White for Queen. Yes. Yes. That's the only title I really want is Queen.
Hey, then we can do a whole play on God Save the Queen. Memes.
Oh, for sure.
We can do a little regal song. We can use AI, Jenny, to make some actual regal music that just encapsulates you as the queen with some farm life thrown in there.
Right there with you, Michael. Tired of being told that they found this or that and nothing happens to the offenders. You're saying everything I agree with. I mean, but it goes back to what Catherine said a little bit ago. I put that one up too. She said, we just don't even believe anybody anymore. I mean, we're in the point where we can elect these people, but then we just don't even believe them because and it's like watching that. We'll go over this again. So many of you were not watching it when we started this morning. I went to see Pike Off OTA's movie last night, documentary.
Jenny's speechless.
I know.
It's that bad. Jenny's speechless.
because literally, if you watch that thing, you sit there the whole time going, how is this happening? So it's exactly what Catherine said. It's exactly what we've talked about. It's exactly what so many of us think anymore, because it's like, but remember we had Cindy Bird on right after the Tulsa audit. And she said, well, here's the thing. Everybody's mad at me, but I don't have enforcement power.
Yeah.
I can't say, Bing, you go to prison. Bing, I can't do that. This is all a problem that legislators have not created the legislation necessary to prosecute offenders. Why? Because so many legislators are offenders themselves and don't want to be prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's absolutely it is such a frustration. And I tell you, people, when you go to see, when the documentary comes out for the public, if you don't watch it, don't be not, just get off the program. I don't even want to talk to you anymore. No, I'm kidding. I mean, well, sort of, not. Well, I don't know. Anyway, you have to see it, because so much of the frustration that we have on our elected officials makes sense when you see it, because you're like, okay, well, so here's the corruption and there's a corruption and there. But what we need now is we have to have people like Bryan, like Jim Shaw, like Molly Jenkins, like Kendall Sacchieri, like Gabe Woolley, who are going to go in and say, you know what, we're not doing this. This isn't what we're doing. We're here to protect the liberty of our constituency, not play this stupid game of protect the legislator.
Yeah. Well, and another thing on that documentary, Jenny, that's just so just to recap for everybody, that's not even the entire corrupt history of the OTA. That's just the Norman project itself. But think about it. That's just the OTA. Think about all the other departments, all of the other, big corporate interest or money that's involved, like the entire, green energy or the windmill or the biosolid stuff or education or, whatever it is. Think about the amount of corruption. If someone was able to take a spotlight like the Pikeoff organization did, take a spotlight in, make a documentary that's just mind blowing, just literally showing you what's actually happening that that you don't know about.
So I want to show you this. I wrote this on the blog the other day. And by the way, I created that meme in Canva. I'm getting fairly good at this. I was pretty happy. See, here's the we the people were so depressed because the government steals our money and then they turn around and give it to select private businesses. Right?
Yeah.
So I looked this up, and here was the funniest thing. It's not funny. I mean, ironically funny. So, I hate tax credits. You hate them too. We're just all sick of the tax credit thing. So, and I write about all of this stuff. You have to look at this document. This document is the Oklahoma Business Incentives and Tax Guide. And I downloaded it and uploaded it into our blog, onto the website, so you can see it. And it literally is, now follow me. These are all them stealing your tax dollars and giving it to other people. Are you excited yet? Blah, 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 blah. The music in the background. Dun, 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 dun. Now, look at the number of pages in this document.
61 pages.
So when I threw some information into Grok and I said, here was my question, how much money does Oklahoma pay for tax incentives? Okay. Searching for total tax incentives paid by this is from Grok, Oklahoma in 2024. If you go down to the bottom, I bolded the part where Grok says, I've exhausted several avenues and can't find a single figure for Oklahoma's total tax incentives paid in 2024. I think it's safe to say that this info isn't publicly available in a straightforward way.
Thanks, Grok.
Y'all need to look this up, because, and then now Here's the pièce de résistance. Here are all of the pieces of legislation, the bills that were brought to the floor and passed this last session for tax incentives. Are you ready? Here goes the dopey music again. La, da, 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 da. And then make sure you look at who's sponsoring these. Pew, Curbs, Thompson, Bowles, Coleman, Pew, Hall, Yet,
Caldwell.
Newton, Thompson, Caldwell. I mean, look at all of these. Da, 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 la, la, la. Okay, and so these are the ones that were voted down.
What do we need to do? Find some bad game show music to play while we scroll through this stuff?
I mean, literally, how horrifying was that?
Yeah. I didn't see you wrote. I need to go read that whole thing. I didn't see you put that out.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, and Lisa does like your shirt. Whoops, this one. This needs to be on Substack too for the AI bots to learn. Yeah, as soon as I've got 4 of me that can post in 12 different places, I'll get on that. Well, I mean, honestly, it is something that you're going to have to share with people, because I don't think people understand how many, possibly a billion, of our tax dollars are going to prop up special interests. And then, you know what happens? We give them our tax money to run the business, and then they pay lobbyists using our tax dollars to come back and ask the legislators that we elect for more money for their business. That's how that works.
That sounds like that school situation when
Same thing.
when you pay them and then you need something, you have to get a lawyer that you paid for to work against you while you pay your own lawyer.
Yep. That's how it works. That's why government's wonderful. All right, Michael, so glad to see you. I'm so glad we had, I think it was a great show today.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to have had,
Well, Bryan is fantastic. I mean, he's kind of, at least for now, I mean, he's a model. He's your model representative in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. And he's honest. I mean,
yeah.
And you know what? That's one of the most disheartening things about going to Capitol, realizing most of them are up there asking for a handout. Absolutely. And if we would just put a stop to that, we would actually have more. I mean, and that was the point of the whole article, this particular whole article. That was, look, you are going to tell me I can't own my own property, and you can't give me an income tax cut that's meaningful. But you can play this game. Yeah, no, I'm so done with that. Okay, so don't forget several things. I keep forgetting we still have a Patreon account. If you would like to donate to us to keep doing this, we would love it if you would. Because all of the many hours that I spend are just out of my poor husband's pocket as we're trying to prepare for retirement. No stress there, Dave.
You need to put up the O'Connor banner.
Oh, and I do need to put that up.
And while you're putting that up, we still need to donate to your court fight against the election board.
Yes, very true. And you can find that on road2.org.
Well, can you do that easily on the website?
Yes, you just go to here's what we're looking at here. All right, so this is our first annual Liberty, Oklahoma conference. It will be held at O'Connor, November 13th through the 15th. We do have a website, libertyoklahoma.org. I am struggling to get that up and running so that we'll have it all ready, so you can buy tickets through there, tickets for the conference through there. You'll buy your room through Ocana itself. And with every room, you get 2 free water park passes. So that's going to be pretty awesome. And you can choose for $130. You can have a single room or a double room. And we'll have our agenda out soon. We'll have the tickets out soon. So we're getting all of this done. It's coming soon. So just put it on your calendar. November 13th through the 15th. We have sponsorships available. You can donate to help with scholarships for this. So anything that you want to do, just reach out to me, and Dorn's going to help me. Now it's public, Dorn. Now you have to, because I just made it public. We wanted to put together a video for it because there's so many things I think that will really be great for a video. So Dorn is going to help me with the video. But so please put it on your calendar. There is a place on the website actually right now that you can click a button if you want to send me or a message so that I can give you information. Then that's great. If you have a business that you think might want to sponsor and you want our pitch deck, just email me. It's right there, jenny@rope2.org, or you can go to the website, push the button. I don't care either way. And I'll send you the pitch deck that we have on it. And the pitch deck will be up on the website, I'm hoping by the end of the day today. So anyway, we hope that you're going to all be there with us for the first annual Liberty Oklahoma Conference from November 13th to the 15th. There we go. All right. Anything else?
That's it. I'm glad Bryan won.
I am too. But we just need to keep supporting him. So, and all of our other peeps that have come in just recently, Jim Shaw, Gabe Woolley, Senator Sacchieri, Wingard, I'm missing people. I know I'm Molly Jenkins, all of these people. Yeah. I mean, they need your support. So, all right. So good thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us today. I know both of us really appreciate you and the fact that you tune in every morning. We just appreciate you so much. Also, don't forget, if you ever have suggestions for somebody to be on, reach out. I mean, trust me when I say sometimes I get on the struggle bus making sure that we have good programming. So let me know if there's something there, and have a wonderful weekend. Michael, anything exciting for you this weekend?
Nothing major.
Okay. All right. Well, have a good time, I hope.
All right. Yes,
I will be working on Liberty, Oklahoma. So pray for me. All right. Thanks for being with us. We really appreciate you. Mwah. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again on Wednesday morning at 9. Oh, and on Wednesday morning at 9, we will have, this will be July 2nd. Charles Key will be talking about the Oklahoma City bombing. So you want to tune in for that one for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. See you next Wednesday. Have a great weekend. All right. Bye-bye.